general, like these other commercial deployment solutions, Gem, do they have similar weaknesses, or is this specific to the
This is specific to the iPhone configuration file manager. Basically, but you can use that for whoever. This is free, and I don't know, pay for implementation. Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to need it. Can you hear me? How about I can use the mic? Around. So this little QR code here, it will connect you to a wireless access point that's advertised as AppSec, California, or something like that. I don't remember exactly. But doing so, it actually uses these .MobileConfigs to get you all set up. So we'll talk about how this is going to be created, talk about MobileConfigs, MDM, all that fun stuff. So to kind of start things off, this is going to be very, very simple in terms of technical exploitation. This is a free tool. It's really, really easy to set up. There's a little bit of social engineering involved with this, physical access for the device that you can use. This is going to be really, really simple, but also a lot of fun and can be really, really effective. So, who am I? I'm Karl Fosaaen. I'm a consultant for NetSpy. Pen test. I'm primarily on internal pen test as well as web apps. I do the occasional mobile app pen test as well. I occasionally research stuff here and there. I like doing stuff with iOS. Password cracking is another big thing that I do. Another big thing that I do at work is pinball repair. Everyone wants to nerd out and talk about pinball later. We have a Twilight Zone machine at work, and I probably spend equal parts research time, equal parts pinball repair time, because it's a 20-plus-year-old pinball machine. I'm apparently the only one who can fix it. I know how to solve it. So, that's who I am. Quick overview. We're going to talk about what MDM is. MDM is pretty simple. Malicious techniques for how we can abuse a MDM solution. Kind of give you a demo and just some conclusions. Should be pretty quick. 20, 30-minute talk here. So, what is MDM? Mobile device management. Who's got a smartphone? I've got a smartphone. More importantly, probably who doesn't have a smartphone? Yeah, pretty much everybody has a smartphone. And everybody wants to use their work email, they want to get access to their Word documents, internal resources, et cetera, off of that device. You want to be connected to the office, or maybe you don't, when you're away from the office, and you want something to manage those devices to make it easier. Well, there's plenty of mobile device management products out there. I'm just going to be talking about one tool that you can use to do this mobile device management. But basically, it's any platform that can be used to manage mobile devices. Pretty simple. So what can you do with MDM? When this whole thing started to come out, it's like, oh, we're going to start managing these smartphone devices. I just started salivating, seeing all of these cool things that we can potentially use as attackers to go ahead and use these devices. So sending your password, lock requirements on the phone so that when you're driving, you can put in your 8-character PIN to change which podcast you're listening to. Automating email account setups, VPN settings, all of that. There's plenty of really cool stuff that you can set up with a lot of these MDM products. Things like geo-tracking, so you can see exactly where that phone is. Remote wiping of phones. Pretty interesting stuff. I won't get into everything today. We're just going to be talking about a couple of specific attacks that I like. We could talk for a full hour going through all of these different potential attacks that we can use with each of these different settings. So, there's a couple of different architectures. The primary one that probably all of you have been exposed to is the client-server model. You get an email from your IT department saying, hey, enroll in our MDM program. Maybe it's an application that they say, hey, download this application and connect it to our provider ID or whatever. Maybe it's just a URL that they send out or an email, something like that. You've got your devices, they phone home to a central management server. They get their settings, they get updated that way. And then there's the one-time application. I used to work for a company that was like 8 people, and at the time we had 3 people with iPhones, so we wanted to manage those iPhones to make it easier to set up stuff. So we just use the iPhone configuration utility to put a profile to these 3 iOS devices. It was really simple. We didn't have to pay for a full-blown MDM solution, anything like that. We just managed it off of one product and had pretty basic profiles, but. So I pulled this directly off of the Apple website. This is greater control for corporate-owned devices, kind of like the corporate-owned thing or owned corporate devices. We have a saying when we're doing penetration tests where we run into a system that's already been compromised by something else, usually like a JBoss or Tomcat server with cmd.jsp already installed as a web app. We've got a command console right there with all the certified pre-owned systems. So maybe think of this. So Apple talks about setting up MDM settings, everything like that. They've got their own product. We're going to use kind of part of that. So malicious techniques. So we want to put one of these malicious profiles onto a device. How do we do this? You can do direct USB connection. If you know the passcode, or if the device doesn't have a passcode, you can easily put these profiles directly on the device via USB. Really, really simple. You plug in, you say, yes, I want to trust this computer. You go ahead, open up the profile manager, say install, done. I mean, if it requires a passcode, you put in the passcode on the device, you're done. This works really well for doing things like kiosks. We'll do a kiosk assessment of an iPad app, something like that. We want to put, say, our port switcher CA to intercept the SSL traffic with our proxy. Well, we can go ahead and apply this malicious profile to set up the wireless access point we want to use, set up the SSL cert. We're going to talk about all of that in a minute, but this is really handy for kiosk devices. So there's USB connection, there's website deployment. For those of you who scanned that QR code, that should take you up to the Net5 blog. I apologize if this is not scanning for you. All it's going to do is just set up the wireless access point, which is sitting over there. It doesn't actually go out to the internet. It just connects you to it and puts a little web clip, which we're going to talk about later. Nothing malicious. It's just kind of an interactive thing if you want to check out the mobile config. So you can just put out a direct mobile config link, say, hey, this is a cool thing that you can configure your iPhone to do. Some kind of social engineering thing to get people to open the link on their iPhone. I know XSS and serve up, malicious mobile config on mobile-only sites. Using QR code links, hey, connect to the wireless hotspot here. Install this profile first in order to get the connection settings. That was kind of the thing that I was showing before everybody came in here. So that's one way of doing it, through direct URLs, through emails. This one can be kind of handy for, say, an on-site social engineering thing where we want to go ahead and get profiles onto people's smartphones before we show up on site. We go ahead and send out a phishing email saying, urgent, your device is not in compliance anymore, we're switching over to a different MDM platform. We need you to get your iPhone, installed with the latest profile, otherwise you're not going to be able to get access to your work email, etc., etc. Make a very convincing email, just attach it down at the bottom, click on it, prompt to install. Very simple way to deploy. I usually just send the profiles to my own phone that way, just to make sure that they work well. So once we've got these mobile configs onto an iOS device, what can we do? The primary attack we're going to talk about is the wireless attack. This one's really simple. This is kind of what's being emulated with the QR code that I was showing you earlier. You set a default SSID, you set the passphrase to connect to that SSID. Then you go ahead and set up some additional settings for them. How about a root SSL CA certificate? So all of your SSL traffic that goes through me, I can go ahead and intercept that. Now, it doesn't apply for certain applications, but any iOS application that inherits the normal proxy settings of iOS, most of the time you're going to be able to get that SSL traffic if you install that from the CA. Setting up these default proxy settings. So when you do connect to my wireless network, you're going to proxy all of your traffic through specific hosts. You can easily capture credentials with this. I'll show you one example that is pretty interesting. Some of you may find this a little shocking, but the other thing is set up a VPN. You can set up VPN settings so that the device will just automatically VPN back into your VPN network. And you can go ahead and start caching traffic back on that backend. So, general idea is you get the MDM controlled iOS device within physical Wi-Fi range. This is why I said this is kind of convenient for on-site social engineering attacks. This is where I kind of came up with the whole idea. We're like, well, how could we abuse this? So, you take a little portable, I don't know how many people can see this here, but a little portable Wi-Fi wireless access point, hook it up to a battery. This fits in my pocket, and this will run the entire day. Go ahead and hook up, a little Raspberry Pi or something like that, something you can run a proxy off of and proxy everything through that, and then just start walking around the building or sit in the parking lot, get people within, physical proximity, and then connect to that wireless access point. You go through the attacking proxy, capture all of that stuff, and send them off to the internet. So, if they've already got the SSL traffic being intercepted, they may just, go ahead and trust everything, and everything should work fine. So one of the things that, this is the shocking thing I don't think a lot of people realize, is the Microsoft ActiveSync settings, it sends authorization basic when it goes from phone home to ActiveSync. So this is your Microsoft Exchange email accounts on your iPhone. When they phone home to mail.example.com, they're sending your domain cred. So the hackme domain and the hackme test account with password 123 as the password, that's that base64 authorization basic token right there. Kind of surprised me the first time I saw it, because I would have expected something at least a little more secure. It's at least sent over SSL, so this is where it comes in handy to get that root CA installed on the device. But these are domain credits. You can do stuff with domain credits. That's great. So there's also application attacks. If you write your own custom malicious application, you can go ahead and deploy that through MDM onto an iOS device using this type of attack. You can set up custom applications. You can set up web clips. So for those of you who downloaded that MobileConfig off of that QR code, I created just kind of a dummy AppSec CA web clip, which is just taking you to the NetSpy blog. You can do this for credential grabbing, say, hey, this is your intranet site, this is how you're going to access your SharePoint document, something like that. And then you put that in the email or get somebody to click on it, put up a little prompt to say, hey, put in your credentials here, and then just get it logged back in on the server. Kind of handy. Really, it's just about getting more credentials or potentially using a malicious app to exploit something else on your device. So here we can see this is the little application it's going to install. It's going to pull up my blog post talking exactly about what we're talking about today. If you did actually install that profile and download it, it will expire on Friday. I said it to destroy itself on Friday. That's another fun thing that you can do with these is kind of keep your profile forever. You can also force it to keep mark it as removable or not. We can kind of drill through those settings if we've got additional time to get into it. But once we've got these credentials, what can we do with that? Well, typically on an external pen test, we'll find some kind of authentication source facing the internet. So if you've got an Outlook web access server, something like that, we can go ahead and try those credentials. If it's say an on-site social engineering, if we can walk right in and we've already got the main credentials, we can start walking onto machines on the network. So it's pretty handy to have. Demo time for anybody that does want to install this. All it does is connects you to the wireless access point and installs that web clip. It will work itself on Friday. It doesn't do anything malicious, but this is one of those examples of how you can get people to go ahead and download that malicious config. The creation of this is extremely simple. Like when I said at the beginning, this is a very non-technical, technical attack. Like this is extremely simple. This is the iPhone configuration utility. It's available for Windows as well as OS 10. I just got it running on my Windows machine here. You just create a new profile. Name it whatever you want. It gives it its own identifier. Say it's part of OWASP, whatever you want. Make it look legitimate. You set up your Wi-Fi settings here. It's just going to connect to the AppSec CA wireless. Automatically join to it when you're within physical proximity. Really handy for us as hackers. Set up a password for it, so not everybody can join. Make it very specific. And then you set up your proxy settings as well. This is extremely simple to set up. It takes like 5 minutes to do all of this. The only really complicated part is figuring out which credential you actually want to install from the Windows version of this. So the Windows version, it gives you a list of all of your credentials or all of your certificate authorities. You've got 150 plus on a physical machine. So to find the actual SSL certificate that I wanted to install from my own certificate stores, it took a while to search through all of these. So this was kind of a pain. But yeah, you basically give it the certificate authority that you want to trust. So this is the intercepting CA for the root proxy. This is what I use for testing, and you just install that certificate authority. Really, really simple. So that gets you in the middle of the SSL traffic. Here's a web clip. Just name it AppSec CA, point it to the blog. You can make it non-removable. So as long as you've got that profile on your device, and you cannot remove that. Make it full screen, give it an icon, make it look pretty. Really, really simple. So you sign the config profile and export it. Again, really simple. You get the .mobileconfig file. You do what you want from there, put it on a web server, email it out. The one thing that gets a little tricky, so for those of you who actually scanned it and got the mobile config, it's probably going to show up as not trusted or not verified. My phone's set up on my device as like a testing device, so it shows up as verified and trusts that signing certificate. You could just sign this with an actual Apple development certificate. That should be fine. That should work for you. I haven't played around too much with the OS 10 version to make sure that that it does for sure sign everything properly, but if you need a CA that's trusted to go ahead and sign that, it's going to look verified when you go ahead and deploy that. And it does tell you what it does. And people aren't necessarily going to go through and drill down and go, oh, it installs a certificate. What does that mean to me? They might not realize that actually there's a root CA that's actually going to intercept that SSL traffic. But give it a description, looks pretty legitimate. So in terms of preventions for this kind of stuff, start with clean phones and add them to the MDM. If you've already got a BYOD kind of situation where somebody's phone may already be jailbroken or rooted or controlled by somebody else, if their phone's not clean, you start adding it to MDM. There's only so much protection that MDM solution can do. If you go to our NetSpy blog, one of my coworkers, Eric Gruber, wrote a great post about how he was able to bypass the AirWatch MDM solution, where he basically took his Android device that was already rooted, and he was intercepting the requests that were going back to the MDM server and just saying, hey, I'm not jailbroken, and I'm totally in compliance with your company compliance. And they fixed that since he wrote the blog post, but it's really interesting blog post how you can fool the MDM and say, oh, okay, no, he's cool, that's totally legitimate, that's fine. Prevent users from installing their own MDM profiles or any other certificate profiles or anything like that. You can lock that down with MDM clients or MDM setups, and add your devices to some kind of mobile device management before somebody does it for you. You don't want your company resources being compromised because you don't have control over these devices. So I think we've got a couple extra minutes here. First off, any questions? Okay, cool. So there's that QR code again real quick. You can find me at @kfosaaen on Twitter. You can find me on the NetSpy blog as well. I'll actually be down at the NetSpy booth after this. If anybody wants to chat or has any questions after that. But I'll show you the iPhone config utility real quick. If I put it near the screen. Okay. Let's see if I can. That's close enough. All right. So these are all the different things that we can configure. Just in general, here's the name, here's the usage, all of that stuff. You can set whether or not this profile can be removed. So I can set this as a permanent profile. You can also set automatic profile removal on the 29. So if you want to do your assessment, you've got a week to do your assessment, you want those profiles removed and cleaned up by the time you're gone, you can easily set that stuff up. You can go ahead and set passcode restrictions. You can make somebody passcode 18 characters, whatever you want, just more annoyance than anything else. Restrictions, these ones are kind of fun. This is the specific applications you can use. So again, this kind of comes down to a prank level at this point. You don't want somebody to use the camera or FaceTime, or something like that, you can go ahead and remove that kind of stuff from that profile. And on the other side of it, if you're actually using this tool for the iOS devices in the organization, you can go ahead and lock these things down too. That's more of a positive tool. Let's see here. Really basic stuff. The Wi-Fi, the VPN we already talked about, set up a default mail. Here's a ton of stuff that we can go through. So I won't go through all of this, but just know that there's a ton of stuff that we can get set up here. We also want to set up our own, say, Apple MDM server on the back end and really continue that with an actual full server implementation. You just go ahead and set up the full MDM domain and get that set up here. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, like I said, you can find me on Twitter or the next blog.
Now, in general, this isn't really a bug. This is social engineering. And this is with your own disaster and your own device.
Yeah.
And everything. But if you follow those guidelines that Apple actually also puts out, it can be pretty secure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so the
long story short is it's not this. If it's used properly, there is no bug in it and the deployment tools. It's just what you can do if you're not careful.
Exactly. So the point that was being made up front here was that you can use these tools to properly configure things. And if you set things up correctly, you can prevent against attacks like this. This is just more of an attack plan that we use for things like social engineering to make it easier for us to get onto those mobile devices and really show impact as to how vulnerable those devices can be or how vulnerable your MDM setups can be. There are MDM profiles that I can add to my device even though my device is already set up on an MDM setup. So, locking that down so you can't set up other profiles on it as well.
Do you know if there's anything on the Android side that allows you to configure a policy with a QR code?
So the QR code is based off of the URL that I'm hosting off of the NetSpy blog. Just set up the web server and serve config files. For the Android side, pretty much all of the major MDM vendors out there have their own configuration tools. I haven't looked into it for something like this iPhone configuration, but I'm sure that there's something very similar out there. I've got an iOS device, so it's one. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thank you. I'll be down at the NetSpy booth if everyone wants to say hi.
Did you go to that little conference? You guys next time? Yeah. What was it?